NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
And welcome to Your Voice with the NRP. We're out of the blocks first on a weekly basis. This is your program sponsored by the Nevis Reformation Party, where the leaders of that great party shares its views, its plans, its hopes and aspirations for our country. So welcome tonight. Strap yourself in. We've got a wonderful show lined up for you. The visions at home and in the diaspora, welcome to your talk show, Your Voice with the NRP. It's our third edition, and we've got with us the leader of the Nevis Reformation Party, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. It's her second time here. She was here on our debut evening, and with us, the exuberant number one, J.D. Keynes, making her first appearance on this great show. Good evening, Dr. Daniel Hodge. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Manners, and good evening to the listening audience at home and abroad. I am doing well. I've had quite a busy weekend, paying attention to what's going on in Nevis as well as in St. Kitts. And I must say that the way that things are looking, we're looking at some very exciting times ahead in the Federation. And so I'm encouraged by a lot of things that I'm hearing, that I'm seeing, and I look forward to the days ahead.
And of course, the political landscape is changing. 1 year ago, you became the leader of the Nevis Reformation Party, now 51 years old, and yesterday on St. Kitts, leadership change in that 89-year-old party, the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, where the distinguished Dr. Denzel Douglas gave way to the dynamo, Dr. Terence Dew. I'm sure you've got words of commendation for him.
Absolutely. In fact, I have had a relationship with Dr. Dew for a while now. He and I would have exchanged certain, thoughts, and I would say that at this time, it is a different time in the development of our country, and you would therefore require different skill sets, different expertise, and it's a challenging time with the COVID-19 being a major factor in the development of our small island, so dependent on tourism. And so I must say that the Labour Party in St. Kitts, I would commend Dr. Dew on ascending to the leadership of the party, and I look forward to definite strong collaborations with regards to moving St. Kitts and Nevis forward. I think what is needed now more than ever is a sense of appreciation that we must work together. And we would have said in the NRP over and over again, I think I would have amplified that, that we're in a federation, and the seat of government, the head of government, sits in St. Kitts, and whoever is in the seat at that time as Prime Minister, it is incumbent upon us here in Nevis to work with that government, that administration. And so I would say that at this point in time, a change has been made. Change does not come easy, but it's definitely bringing a sense of renewed hope and renewed energy in terms of what can be expected and in what direction the country would go. And so to Dr. Dew and the Labour Party, I wish them all the best in their endeavours. And we here in Nevis, we understand that this is a federation. There are certain responsibilities, there are certain requirements. And definitely, we would not put ourselves in a position where we do not have our relationship formalized. And so every month you're not sure what is going to happen and what's not going to happen. We understand that it's very important to formalize these types of relationships, not just the day after election when you form a coalition, etc., but before. And so we look forward to what would come in the days ahead with the new leadership of the Labour Party.
And on this side of the Narrows, you had some activities in your constituency this weekend.
Yes, well, it's important, I think. We spoke about the reason for this program being an opportunity for persons to express their concerns, and we understand that it's important for us to reach the constituents where they are and to provide an opportunity in a very relaxed type of environment where everyone can participate. One of the things that we have tried to do as a party is to demonstrate the principles upon which the party was founded, which is, inclusivity, equality, and letting everyone know that they are welcome to be a part of the new vision that we have for Nevis going forward. I think it has been a long time since we have seen a direct effort to ensure that we can all work together for the benefit of Nevis and the people of Nevis. And so we have a series of appreciation breakfast, and this is primarily in the St. James's constituency. It's a very diverse constituency, and so we make adjustments as we go. But it really provides an opportunity for persons to come out, have a breakfast, share ideas, any suggestions, any concerns. One of the concerns people would have expressed as I walk through and do house-to-house visits is that they feel that nobody's listening to them. Mm-hmm. They feel like their concerns are not being heard, and so I was actually quite surprised at how persons really, took advantage of the opportunity to come out in a very cordial, friendly type of environment to share some of their concerns, which goes a long way in terms of what programs they may be able to put in place for the benefit of people based on what their requirements and suggestions will be.
Now, JD, let me congratulate you right off the bat for attaining your master's degree from the University of the West Indies, forever reaching for new horizons, adding titles to the end of your name, and in 2022 adding another title to the front of your name.
Yes.
Number
From
one.
your lips to God's ears.
So tell us a little bit about that journey to your new educational attainment, and of course you had activities of your own on the weekend.
So good evening, Mr. Manners, good evening, Dr. Daniel Hodge, and good evening to everyone who's listening to us on Your Voice with the NRP. Of course, we want to hear from you. You're hearing from us, but we want to hear from you as well, because we're here representing your voice. Thank you so much for your words of congratulations and commendations, Mr. Manners. It was interesting. Persons who've known me for a long time would know that I am into academics, so it wasn't necessarily difficult in terms of the actual work. It was a challenge, but it wasn't difficult that it's stuff that's so hard that I can't process. The thing though is, I have a lot going on in my life. I'm a parent, I have a very demanding job, I'm a political candidate, I do a lot of things. I'm active in church, I'm active in the community, and so the hardest part for me was really balancing my time and making sure that I set aside the enough time to get everything done. The sad thing is, though, I developed a sleeping schedule that I have not been able to break as yet. And so sometimes you find that I am up. I might go to bed early, and then you find that I am up, in the wee hours of the morning and can't get back to sleep, because I'm still on that quote-unquote UE schedule. But, I'm happy that I was able to accomplish this, and I want to encourage other people, particularly young mothers, to, go out there and reach Reach for what it is you want. Reach for your dreams. Don't allow the distractions of life to hold you back. They may set you back some, but don't let that keep you back entirely. I've had a lot of positive role models and a lot of persons to look up to in terms of persons who have done this. One of my closest friends, was a mother fairly young, and she really pushed through. So when I look at her and all that she's accomplished and other young women here on the island of Nevis, I'm like, wow, I'm encouraged. So I'm hoping that my journey would help to encourage some other young woman to never give up. Keep pushing, and it's not where you start, it's about where you finish. So keep pushing. I know my parents are proud because they didn't have the opportunity that I have now, and I'm hoping that my daughter will have even more opportunities than I have now.
It's 20 minutes to 9, and we will be here until 10 o'clock. And please remember that your calls will be included at the top of the hour. We really want to hear from you. It was Dr. Bartlett who mentioned last week, sitting right over there, that we know you're listening. Persons meet you in the supermarket the day after. When I go home, my phone, which is now shut off, is flooded with messages. This is an exercise in democracy, and we want to hear from you. This is a two-way street, and we want to have dialogue with you at your homes, in your communities. Now, JD, as you just said, you are a woman of many parts. You've got work. You are a single mother. You're involved in church. I often marvel at your level of energy. But then you're young. You're the youngest member of the NRP team. Why did you enter the political arena? What's the rationale for that?
Well, Mr. Manners, growing up, my teachers would probably tell you that this comes as no surprise to them. I was always one to challenge things, speak up and speak out, be the voice of persons, my peers, my classmates. And so they would tell you that this comes as no surprise to them. And not just because I am one to speak up against wrong, but I have been deeply rooted in community service. I always want to see how much I can help, what I can do to make situations better. Even if sometimes people think that politics is about seeing everything as being bad and wanting to change everything to being quote-unquote good. I disagree. Sometimes there are things that are good, but you want to make them better. And so I believe that there are certain things about Nevis and Nevis's economy and Nevis's potential that are pretty good, but I believe we just currently don't have the stock. We don't have the result. We don't have the personnel rather, to take us to that next level. And so even though I knew that at some point I would get involved in elective politics, it was looking at the NRP and its vision, its goals, how it started to restructure and reshift, electing Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge as its new leader, someone who I know because of her work in the United States Virgin Islands and even here at home. I figured, man, this is as good a time as any to really get out there. You would be a part of a great team and move Nevis forward. Additionally, I just wasn't pleased with the level of representation that we were getting and that we are getting on the island of Nevis, particularly in Nevis 1 St. Paul. I think that while some strides have been made, I feel like there's a lot more that can be accomplished, and we need somebody who in St. Paul who is ever present, somebody who is consistent, and we need somebody who is going to say goodbye to the pain and tell you, come and experience some gains with canes. And so I felt like the time was now, and here I am.
Gains with canes.
Gains with canes. No more pain. Gains with canes.
Now we are at November 29th. So tomorrow is the end of November.
Yes.
And we are going to be entering a very important month, final month for the year. And then we're into 2022, the year of change. Change must come.
Must.
And, listening to the Premier's press conference on Thursday, I think it was, a member of his team from the Government Information Service gave him a platform to tell us a little bit about of how the government intends to chart the course forward for Nevis.
Yeah.
Rebuilding Nevis after COVID and everything else. And earlier in the press conference, he had said that his language is somewhat flippant sometimes. And he said, come December 7th, the budget is going to be December 7th, come and hear. I thought that he missed a trick, because the nation has been yearning for a vision and a plan going forward, and he could have whetted the appetite of people. And we're going to talk about the proposed budget a little later and what you would like to see. But JD, how do you intend to be a change maker in Nevis, St. Paul's, Nevis?
You know, Mr. Manners, it's
Daniel over there, Manners over there.
And I'm calling Mr. Daniel, you know,
Mr. Manners.
Oh my goodness.
We're having fun, don't worry.
Mr. Manners, I listened to the same press conference, and I heard the question being asked, and I want to say that not that I want to spend too much time on it, but you know, as leaders, persons in the public eye, public officials, I think we ought to be mindful of our tone. We ought to be mindful of the way we speak to people, and you know, we just have to be decent and have good manners. And I think if these are things that we are, that form part of our daily lives, of our upbringing, then it should come naturally. So personally, as someone who would have been in the media for some time, I really did not like the response. Apart from the fact that it you know, he missed the mark in terms of, well, we were on the mark. We haven't get set and go yet. We were on the mark. We were on the mark. Apart from that, I really did not like the response. I thought that it could have been a little bit, you know, a little bit nicer, a little bit less harsh. But I just wanted to put that out there. Moving along, though, I believe that in St. Paul, what we need, as I said, is somebody who is going to be present, and not present only when it's time for an election. And that is what we are seeing, not just in St. Paul, but Dr. Daniel Hodge sees it in St. James. She talks about it, you know, quite often. It's Gingerland, St. George, Rohan has been speaking about it. Dr. Bartlett speaks about it, and in the case of Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmer, she's seeing it as well, that, you know, persons tend to come around when we know that an election is coming, and that presence is not always there. Look at Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons, who is elected. Although she's in opposition, she's ever present. She's ever present. You don't have to wonder who the representative is for that constituency. And I'm saying that is what we need across the island in all 5 constituencies, and that is what I hope to be in St. Paul. Going through the villages and having discussions with our people, I realize that there are a lot of things that people want that are not even very difficult to pull off. And if you are in touch with the people, you would understand and recognize that, I mean, these are simple things. People want to improve their standard of living, and we are not getting a whole lot of that in Nevis 1. And I want to, just by my very nature, change all of that. I want to ensure that if I am elected, I am somebody who is ever present in my constituency. You know that I am going to walk through. You can come to me at any time and have a discussion. You know, you bounce ideas. That's one of the things that has been happening. People have been, we kind of set the tone, have a preliminary discussion, and people keep coming back. They're finding your number, or they're finding you on social media, and they say, you know, JD, I thought of this. What do you think? That's the kind of rapport I think should happen in Nevis 1. I think that is what we need to see, because we are the ones who put you there. So why, when you get there, you forget us? And as I love Dr. Daniel so much, she knows this, but I tell her all the time, no disrespect to you, but please don't ask me to go out there and beg these people for their support. And when I get in, you don't give me an opportunity to do for them, because I think that is what is happening now.
You know, interesting what you've just said, because I was driving down Government Road maybe 2 months ago when I stopped to give somebody a lift coming out of in the vicinity of the hospital. And they said, you realize election coming soon? I said, why do you say that? He said, you don't see they're doing a little bit of road here and there? You know, that's the kind of politics we've had. An election is coming, and so you see all sorts of road work, 3 or 4 housing projects being launched, all at the same time. It is time that we have a different sort of dispensation in the politics. And you have said you've been listening, People have been telling you what their feelings are, what their hurts are, what their pains are. Tell us what the people in Charlestown are saying to you.
Well, you know, the people in Charlestown are saying that they want representation that is around the clock. They want to be able to see their representative all the time and not just some of the time. They also want to be able to get what is intended for them and not what the other constituencies don't want. They're also saying that yes, we are grateful, and I am one of them. I am grateful for the roads, but I can't eat roads, especially in an environment such as this, and so I want things that hit home a little bit more. The people of Charlestown are saying, hey, all of the constituencies have 1, 2, sometimes 3 community centers, and we are the only one without a place. Is it that you think that we are so divided? The people of Charlestown are saying, hey, I mean, what happened to our after-school programs? What happened to job creation for our young people to keep them off of the street and get them off of programs that they have to be reliant on the government for a handout? They're saying that they want long-term and meaningful development. They want opportunities for themselves and their children. The people of St. Paul want more.
I was shocked beyond belief as well, coming out of the press conference. A question was asked about the rate of unemployment. And the Minister of Finance had no clue. He said that we don't have these figures. Now, we've been in a pandemic for going on 2 years, and you have told us you want to climb out of this. You have to be monitoring those numbers closely.
Exactly.
He was also asked how many children have come out of the 2 high schools and can't find a job. And I was really taken aback that those sort of figures were not on the fingertips of our leaders, which makes you wonder about the vision. And I know, Dr. Daniel Hodge, that you've got some views on where we need to go as a country.
I certainly do, but as we speak about the press conference, I realized that our premier was gone for quite a period of time during October, and there was a press conference and there was no mention of how those trips would have been beneficial to the people of Nevis. And it is interesting that the 2 trips that he opted to take, one to Serbia and one to
Rome,
they were under the portfolio as Minister of Foreign Affairs. And it is very obvious that once he travels as Minister of Foreign Affairs, the people of Nevis do not need to know how or what he did, because he's not representing the people of Nevis at that point in time. What I found quite interesting is that the COP26, which is a meeting of the United Nations, the leaders, global leaders, and their main function at COP26 is to try to see how best they can assist the developing countries, such as St. Kitts and Nevis, with regards to addressing climate change. And I think that many persons would have heard and shared the clip by Mia Motley regarding the need for the developed countries to fulfill their roles. In 2015, they would have made an agreement that they would provide $100 billion to developing countries to help them address the impacts of climate change. And it was very disheartening to see Mia Motley, as compassionate as she could be for her people in Barbados, that you did not have that support from the other counterparts. I have been involved in similar types of meetings, and what you would do is, before you go to the meeting, in order to strengthen your voice, and as CARICOM, even OECD, well, Barbados is not in OECD, but you would sit down and say what it is we are going to rally for. And I was very disheartened to find out that because Minister Evelyn would have attended that meeting in his capacity of Federal Minister of Environment, the people of Nevis were not privy to any sort of outcome, how that meeting would help us. And we know that here in Nevis, we suffer severely from the impacts of climate change. And so I look at the thought process, and for what reasons do we attend certain meetings, if not to help the people of Nevis, and if not to explain to the people of Nevis that there's possibly hope along the way. The European Commission would have committed 100 million euros. They had not done this before. The leader of Boris Johnson, he would have made unprecedented commitments to help developing states. And I am of the view that this is really where our effort should be for the development of Nevis. And so I was very disheartened to see that even though there was no presence at the meeting, so to speak, on behalf of Nevis, we didn't even deserve a report to say that these are the decisions that were made, and we're looking forward to how we can benefit and capitalize. We're going to be in solidarity with Mayor Motley. We understand that we should, as small island states, we should all work together and rally together for the benefit of our islands. And so I was very disappointed to see that, that type of a high-level meeting took place, very critical, because it's the first time since the Paris Agreement in 2015 that the developed countries really had to provide an account of how they had been assisting. And they have fallen short, miserably short. And that's why Mayor Motley was so, enraged about coming here to say we're saving the world, but what are you really doing? And so I was very disappointed about that. And then the other meeting that I thought would have been mentioned in the press conference would have been the meeting in Dubai. I mean, we sing every day that we want our fair share of the CBI. The Prime Minister led a delegation to Dubai to speak about the CBI program. And so how are we to rally a cause and the information is not forthcoming? I think it would have been very useful if the Premier took the opportunity at the press conference to indicate what the program, what the trip was about, and how, since we have been talking about CBI and our fair share for so long, how that would have been beneficial to us. And so I see it as really, if your priority is not in the right place, if your focus is not in the right place, your decision making is not going to provide the type of results that will be beneficial for the people of Nevis. And so looking at those areas, that's a really big problem. I would say we speak about the vision going forward, and we would have spoken quite often about the Sustainable Development Goals and having a global framework by which to guide our activities. Now, the purchase of the Wärtsilä engine, I think, again, was an indication that Nevis right now has no clear direction as to where we want to go.
Yep.
We can see in St. Kitts the solar farm being developed, and if we in Nevis, who has, we have a much smaller population, we could have much more impact with regards to renewable energy and how we can move forward with it. And so I looked at, for example, if you look at the St. Kitts Investment Promotion Agency, if you look at their website and the opportunities for people to invest, you will see renewable energy, you will see tourism activities, a number of different activities. And again, the Nevis Investment Promotion Agency, the legislation was amended so that they could have more autonomy. A new web page was launched earlier this year, and as the last press conference of the year, you would imagine that there will be some update regarding the performance of Nevis Investment Promotion Agency and what it was able to accomplish. Again, it's a matter of not having the right priorities. We say we need money to complete geothermal. Geothermal is not mentioned anywhere on the website as an opportunity for foreign investors. I compare this to St. Kitts, where they have renewable energy and they have a partnership with a company that I'm sure is able to benefit from the same funding from climate change. We do not have renewable energy. We do not have Mondo Track as a sports facility to be developed. And when you look at where monies are being spent and the returns on those investments, then you have a problem. Now, in terms of our vision, we are saying that in NRP, we must be focused, we must know where we want to go. And we are convinced that looking at the blue-green economy, that is really where we need to go in order to bring prosperity back to Nevis. And people would ask, what do you mean about the blue-green economy? And it's really maximizing our ocean resources and our land resources, our forests, etc., to create employment opportunities and to generate revenues. Now, in terms of fitting into a sustainability type development approach, what we have right now, we have a tourism industry, which is the largest contributor to our GDP. When you look at what has been done to advance tourism in Nevis over the last 6-7 years, you cannot see any change. Now, I think this is a very opportune time for me to congratulate the 4 Nevision cricketers who made the West Indies under-19 team. And why is that so important? Because we look at sports here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We look at sports in Nevis. We look at the history of sports and how we would have advanced, for example, in cricket. We have bodybuilders. We have a drag strip. And of course we invested in the Mondo Track. And it was very interesting to hear the Premier said that that's a capital project. It's not how we expect it to generate revenues. And so you have a tourism based economy, but what are we providing? And so sports tourism is something that is very ripe for the picking in Nevis based on what our Inter-Premier Championships. I mean, those are significant games. And when we look at our mark in cricket and what we have done and what we continue to do, we look at our cross-channel swim. We look at the horse racing. Unfortunately, that track was allowed to disappear. So, looking at how we can move forward, we know definitely tourism is a major part of our economy, and we must be able to expand our tourism base. And so sports tourism is something that is very practical and very possible to happen in Nevis, because that's natural raw talent that we have here from time to time. And then we look at the heritage tourism that we have. We look at our arts, we look at our culture, our music. And so when people come to your island, they would want to be able to experience something that is different, that is unique. And so we have so much talent in so many different areas, but it is not organized. It's not harnessed into creating revenue for the island. And so that is one area that I think we can begin to look at that would fit into the sustainable development goals, and also contribute to the development of our economy. When we look at, for example, where we are with regard to our fisheries industry, sports tourism, fishing tournaments. I mean, imagine having a 2-week period of sporting activities. Imagine developing the ETW park, the first
Leeward
Islander to make the West Indies cricket team. And so you look at all of that history
From St. Paul.
Yeah. So you would have people traveling and coming in order to, I mean, right now they could, even have a lunch with Mr. Willard and participate in the sports tourism once we develop it in such a way and capitalize. I mean, how can you put a 10 million track, the best in the OECS, and just let it sit there?
11 million.
Well, 11 million and more to go.
With 10 million pending.
So these are the things that I find are very lacking in terms of having a vision and where we would want to go. Looking again.
I think let's hold it right there, Janice.
Yes.
A lot of food for thought. We have gone past 9 o'clock. It's 7 minutes past 9. We dearly want to hear from you. We are opening the lines now. Well, after the break, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we want to hear from you. Remember the numbers: 469-1616, 469-1700. You are listening to Your Voice with the NRP.
Your voice, your voice, your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
Welcome back, and remember, your calls are invited. We want to have dialogue between our leaders. We've got in the studio the leader of the NRP, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, and J.D. Keynes, and they want to hear from you. You were making a point there about ways in which we can diversify.
Yeah, so expand what we currently have in terms of tourism, but then also look at different means. Right now we have the funds that we would be able to access for climate change adaptation. And one of the things that we have not been able to do is to really develop our agricultural sector in a significant way. And when we look at food security, whether it's land-based or marine-based, these are all factors that feed into the overall sustainable development agenda. And we've heard talk about our mango industry, very popular food, but we have not really capitalized on developing an industry to the extent that it would be create the type of job opportunities that we would want. Our fishing industry, again, many tourists come to Nevis because of the seafood, and we really have not invested in the development of our fishery sector. And so the fishers, really cannot commit to a full-time fishing as their livelihood. They have to find other means, and if the necessary resources were invested in these sectors, agriculture and fishing, on a large scale, it will be much better.
I think we have got our first call for the evening. Caller, I think we've lost that caller. Caller, please call back. We would really like to hear from you. Now, JD, you're young. I know you've got 1,000 godchildren. So you're hearing, you're all eyes and ears of the young people in your constituency. My main concern have been them. Because there seems to be no clear path to the future. You're saying that they just don't want any and anything. The roads are important. But they're looking for personal advancement.
Yes.
To make their way up in this world. What are the young people telling you?
You know, Mr. Manners and Dr. Daniel Hodge would have started to touch on it. One of the things that the young people of St. Paul have been talking about and really showing, expressing their grievance with, has to do with the state of our sporting facilities. Imagine, and Dr. Daniel referenced 4 young men, Onaje Amory, Jaden Carmichael, Carlon Tuckett, and Justin Amadon. Yes. They, as a matter of fact, would have come out of the camp of the government road, Penniless All-Stars. They would have trained under people like El Camino Willett, Strutt Williams, Carl Tuckett, you know, and they're following in the footsteps of, you know, the aforementioned and Renako Morton, who would have all made it to the West Indies cricket team, and they came out of Government Road All-Stars, as well as Kian Pemberton, who made that same team, the West Indies under-19 team, a few years ago. Imagine our young men going out there doing such great things from this tiny island, and persons may be saying, "What? I wonder what kind of facilities these young people are being trained on." And then to come to Nevis and you realize, I mean, it's a burning shame. As a matter of fact, we know that these games are going to be played soon, and we have some games that are going to be played in St. Kitts.
Well, I'll tell you. This evening on the ZIZ News, there was a feature with John L. Powell, the Minister of Sport. And he was, along with a public relations officer from the West Indies Cricket Board, and I think Ricky Skerritt was there as well. They were talking about the tournament which starts in January. And he said, well, you know, we'll be ready, we'll put all the facilities in, and we're happy to know that there are 4 players, I think he said 5 players, from Nevis who will be on that team. But the aforementioned parents will have to either travel to Warner Park, Connery, Sandy Point, Molyneux, to see their own folks. Coming from a state where Nevis was a central point in the Federation for Cricket.
Yes. I mean, and this is something that bothers me. I mean, I am so proud of these young men, and I am equally proud of the people who would have stuck with them and really pushed them. Because, I mean, the facilities that we have on the island of Nevis to really push sports and sport development is, I mean, it's ridiculous. I heard it just last week in the Premier's press conference, mention being made of our state-of-the-art Mondo track, and it was in that premise that we were congratulating Leroy Chapman and Tajay Liebert, who would have recently received scholarships, athletic scholarships to study abroad. And they're saying he was making the point that these young men, when they run abroad, they are going to be running on a track that is familiar to them because they would have run on it here. Which part of Tajay and Leroy ran and the Mondo track for a long time. These guys would have graduated from secondary school. Only Leroy had a short stint on the Mondo. Well, but I'm saying though, there isn't much development. What is going on an ongoing basis? When you go to the Mondo track, people are using it to exercise primarily. You know, and even outside of the fact that there is COVID and we would have had to scale back the sporting activities, the reality is there was no plan. There is no plan in place right now for the Mondo track to be completed. I mean, you still have to walk a mile to use the bathroom facilities. the stands are still temporary, and these are things that we would have taken up considerable sums to invest in. Fine, but then why not go all the way? Look at the state of the netball complex. I mean, to me, El Camino Willett, a man of his stature, a man who has done such great things, and Cicely Grell, Dora Stevens, their children and grandchildren children, should be outraged and probably even want to remove their names from these sporting facilities because they do not represent.
Well, I had
these
a tour
people.
of the netball complex recently. It's appalling, really.
It's appalling.
Yeah. But the Premier was trying to make a nexus between Leroy and Tajay and the Mondo track, and said they had come through the primary school system, the
Inter-primary?
The inter-primary. Truth be told, those youngsters in their primary school days, they've gone through 5 years in high school. They've gone through 2 years in sixth form college. They were running at Grove Park. But he was trying to make the nexus that these two were going off for scholarships because the Mondo track is there.
Exactly.
Well, people going off on scholarships, athletic scholarships, go back to Lester Blackett in the early 70s, Jaron Webb, the Keynes boys, Fletcher St. Jean, Janice Rollins from Matchman. So it's not anything new. But you're absolutely right that if you have a facility, go all the way and finish it.
Yes.
You're the ones who is helping to generate the funds from the Citizen by Investment program. Why is it that no monies are forthcoming? And ultimately, you must put plans and programs in place to properly utilize the facility.
Yes, I agree.
There's no
I agree
question about that.
And that's something that the NRP is really passionate about, because we recognize that, in a lot of cases, sports is what our young people turn to. A lot of our young people gravitate to sports. It's like their safe haven, their safe zone. They feel that, in some cases, those who are not that academically inclined, they feel like sport is that thing that can move them from one situation or one level of life, standard of life, to the next. What are we doing? What are we doing to help push that?
Well, what I would say, right, is if you're not organized, if you just have raw talent and it has to find a way to develop itself, it's not going to be as effective. If you organize into, you have a sports tourism as an area where you put your resources and your focus, and you can have events each year where you can have coaches come in, and it's worth their while to come in, because people have gone through their preliminaries during the school year, working up towards this big stage where they would be seen all over, and people can come in. And the same thing for football, for cricket, basketball, all of these sports. People, the youths can know, well, we are working towards knowing that at this time, when we have our sports extravaganza, the coaches are going to be coming in, we're going to have real opportunities for scholarships, and you put the facilities in place in order to accommodate that. The other area that I think is very important is our tertiary level education. We have seen since the sixth form college not much done with regards to education for our youth. With the vision of developing NEVIS under the Sustainable Development Goals framework, understanding that renewable energy is the way that everybody is going to go because of the issues with climate change, and because that is where you have funding available, then our students would be encouraged to pursue, if you want to get into sports, that there are going to be opportunities for you to expand and get exposure. And if you want to get into your studies, scholarships will be provided that would be aligned with the development of NEVIS. And so if we're looking at promoting renewable energy, we already have some work in geothermal, we already have some the wind farms, solar energy is a big plant in St. Kitts. So where is the training for our people, our youths, to get involved in this type of training, so that they can then build livelihoods on the new wave of development industries that we're going to be seeing? And so developing an educational facility at the tertiary level where we can train right here our youths, so that they can participate in installation, maintenance of renewable energy, solar panels, wind farm, etc. And not only that, then you look at a small industry to produce the necessary components because eventually fossil fuel is going to be, weaned out, and we have to look at renewable energy. And when we see all that is going on around us, what are we doing to prepare our youths to be able to find their way in this new era that is coming forward? And so when we look at transitioning to renewable energy, it's not just in terms of, to reduce the cost of doing business, but it also the way that you would need to go in order to have provide better opportunities for your youths. And so when you look at the overall vision of where we would want to go, the youths are very much at the forefront in terms of the opportunities that would be provided for them. And of course, those opportunities also provide create employment opportunities as well. I must say, I don't know if I missed it, but I did not hear in the press conference any update regarding MSR. I did not hear any update regarding the PCR testing, and
one and only. That wasn't mentioned there.
Did not hear that, and I did not hear anything about the opening of the latest commercial facility on Nevis at Belmont Gardens. I am not sure if I heard anything about that, and so one must wonder really, what are the priorities? You have a press conference, and these are things that are happening in Nevis. The Pinnis Park is going to be opening. This is the last press conference. You would expect to hear how this park is now going to be beneficial.
How many people are going to be hired?
To the people of Nevis. And so, really, what was the press conference about?
Well, these press conferences, for me, I get the impression that the permanent secretary and host in the morning and maybe the night before scribbles a few line items on a paper and hand them and says, Premier A.G. Brantley, Mark A.G. Brantley, here is what's been happening. So we had a march against nonviolence, Duncan Cook, etc., etc.
It's community calendar.
That's what you call it.
Community calendar.
But it is noticeable for its omission. I'll give you a case in point. The day before, there was a fire at Villa Paradiso, and the Premier had to be prompted to tell the nation about that. We saw the videos of smoke billowing in the sky. This coming at a time when we are going into the winter season, and of course, having lost your kitchen, that would give a setback to you. We didn't get updates on the Nisbet Plantation Inn. We're going into the winter season, second winter season without that. The Daily Mail in England has it all over their newspaper that Montpellier Hotel is up for sale for 14 million. One would have thought that you would get an idea of, well, the Four Seasons is there, it might be hiring some new people, but how the absence of those hotels and the fire, and how are they going to be impacting our winter season? So, as you said, it's a bit of a...
It is community calendar.
It is community
calendar.
Well,
Mr. Manners, it is interesting because even though an update was not provided in the press conference regarding the fire, I think more was done. I think whether on social media regarding that fire, compared to when we lost the wall, the slave market wall here in Charlestown. Now, if we're talking about heritage tourism and our natural resources, maximizing our natural resources, historical, etc., we have not heard what is going to become of that wall, and that was a significant part of the Charlestown, historical Charlestown, etc. And so on one hand, we're saying we're trying to promote, heritage tourism and protect our, you would hear, oh, don't take up the stones, etc. But in that instance with the wall for the slave market, the neighbor, I understand, was complaining for a very long time in terms of assistance to not have to remove the wall. And so when you look at really having a hotel is one thing, but what are you doing to attract people to come to Nevis? And that's where I'm saying if we really develop our sports, our youths in that area, if we really look at our heritage resources and develop those types of areas, we also have so many opportunities for research. I know we speak about COVID-19, and the doctors will tell you, take a paracetamol, you know, 1 or 2, whether before or after. We have paracetamol here, just going wherever, you just throw it down and it grows. You hear of all different types of lemongrass is important. So where is the organized effort to capture all of these natural resources and make them into a commercial type development activity that we can maximize? It's so easy, not to mention the cannabis and how that can be looked at. Talk about heritage tourism. What about the hot springs? What has been done? There was a fire there at the Bath Hotel, the Bath Hotel some time ago. And so what we have, you know, I always hear, you know, once you already have something, you take care of it, because it's going to be more difficult to replace it. Yeah. And that is true for our environment, our natural resources, our ponds along the western coast of Nevis that are so important for the water quality on Pinnis Beach, and also as an area for the, you know, juvenile fish to grow, to replenish our fisheries, etc. All of these natural resources that we have, you can create employment opportunities for people to replant mangroves, to clean out the ponds, etc. And it all fits into, you know, again, the tourism industry, but it's looking at it knowing that we are trying to build a sustainable economy on Nevis, and these are the things that we would need to do. And so we look at our education, we look at scholarships, etc., and all of these would fit into us achieving those 17 SDGs, you know, one at a time.
Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, you've got too much vision. What the hell? We give you roads as smooth as a baby's bottom, and that's enough. We have got 9:27, so we've got just about 33 more minutes. Your opportunity to call in. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, the Premier has said that he is withholding his thoughts on the budget until December 7th. Well, we've been waiting for a vision for 9 years. When we come back, Dr. Daniel Hodge and J.D. Keynes will share their vision, what they'd like to see in the budget for 2022. We'll take a break now, and after that you can call us 469-1616, 469-1700.
Your voice, your voice, your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
Now, JD, let me come to you first. You are a single mother. You have been very close to the young ladies and other single mothers in the community. They have been some of the hardest hit during this pandemic.
Yes.
And they've been talking to you. They're telling you what their pains are. And definitely a budget should be outlining some sorts of plans to alleviate their pain and distress.
Yes.
What would you like to see for single mothers, young teen mothers, for instance, in our community?
You see, I believe that Nevis needs to become, and I say become because it is not that way right now. Nevis needs to become an island where everybody can eat. Nevis needs to become an island where everybody feels like they are part of something, where everybody is able to sustain themselves and their families. That is not happening right now. And I believe the onus is on our government to help to set this direction. We need to lead by example in government. Yes, as citizens and residents, we have our roles to play, but the reality is, and especially now as we're going into the silly political season, for want of a better term, we realize that the politicians have a lot of say in terms of how people think and the things people do. And I say all of that to say that in this next budget, I am hoping that it can be with people at the center of everything we do.
What do you mean?
We have
They say people matter more.
Well, I was just about to say, we say people matter more, but in reality, our actions have not shown that people matter. For example, I want to know that there will be employment opportunities for single mothers, young people, persons who are still paying their mortgages. I want to know that people will be employed. And how can people be employed? Well, we have to, first of all, the government has over the past couple of years engaged in rampant spending. I mean, and when I say that, I'm not talking about spending on projects that are benefiting the island of Nevis. We have seen cost overrun in a lot of cases and quality underrun. You know, a lot of our projects have gone, the few projects that we have gone over budget, and so these are things that we need to cut back on. Also, the need to hire persons just for political, based on their political affiliation, with no major impact on our economy. That is something that we need to cut back on, and then we can employ additional persons. So rather than paying one person $8,000, we can employ 4 persons and give them 2. I mean, I want to see business opportunities. Yes, I agree, the government cannot provide employment for everybody. It cannot happen, whether it's a CCM-led government or a Nevis Reformation Party-led government, as would be the case in the next couple of months. I know that government cannot provide employment for everybody. So what does that mean? It means that we need to have a strong private sector. We need to have some investor confidence in this island. Right now, what we are seeing is that the big companies are the only ones who are getting breaks in terms of doing business here on the island of Nevis, and by extension, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. What happened to the small businesses? We need them to help to drive our economy. What opportunities are there for persons? We talk every year about the number of business licenses that would have been taken out on an annual basis. But does anyone ever talk about the number of businesses that would have been closed on an annual basis? That doesn't happen. And the reality is a lot of businesses have been closed. And it's because they're not able to sustain themselves. They're not able to afford the rent in Charlestown and their mortgages at home. And so what I want is business opportunities for our young people. I also want better health facilities. If not now, I don't know when. We are living in a pandemic, and there has been no meaningful effort at upgrading our health facilities in terms of the physical structures, or even in terms of the services that we offer. I keep asking, what is our plan to ensure that there are additional persons brought into the health services sector? And I'm not just talking about at the level of doctors, because yes, we want doctors, we are seeing doctors, but what are we doing to attract additional community health nurses? What are we doing to take some of the strain away from the Alexandra Hospital? I submit that what we need in this next budget is a shift towards upgrading the health centers around the island. Let's start in the capital of Charlestown, because I mean, Charlestown must be the hub of economic activity. It's the capital. What we need to see is the expansion of our health center in terms, and the upgrade, so that eventually we can have persons going to the health centers for the services that really should be done there, and take away that strain from the Alexandra Hospital. There is nothing that says that the health center has to be closed at 4 p.m. every afternoon. You know, we have a case where persons are looking for employment. Why not extend? Well, you have to first upgrade the services, and then why not extend the hours of the health center, therefore bringing on additional people to work, have persons working on shift? What are we doing to attract additional community health nurses? All but approximately 2 right now are of retirement age, and we are so grateful to them for their service, but the reality is we need to attract more people. So I want to see in this budget again ways in which we can, or a push by our government to attract persons, be it through scholarships, be it through incentives, into health services. I also, as I mentioned earlier, want to see better sporting facilities. We have to think about the long run. We don't want our up and coming athletes to miss the mark. We don't want them to just stay on the mark. We want them to get set, go. And so we don't want you to, you know, in a few years' time, be holding your heads and crying and say, boy, I really should have, or if I been no, I could have done. We don't want that. So put things in place now. And I maintain education and training, just like healthcare, has to be front and center. We need to ensure that our children, our young people are properly trained and educated. Trained in areas of skills, as Dr. Daniel Hodge would have alluded to earlier. We want our people to have all of that. And these are just some of the things that I want to see in the budget. Minister of Finance and the others, I would have given you a head start. Please get off the mark. Get set. Go. Do something.
Now, Dr. Bartlett last week raked, I think we've got a caller, our first caller for the night. Good evening, caller.
Good evening. I have a question. In terms of housing on the island of Nevis, how does the NRP plan to make it more affordable? Because we've been hearing people talking about they've been getting homes, but they can't afford them. I would like to hear from both candidates their view on that.
Thank you very much, caller. It's the caller is inquiring about making housing more affordable. And he said he wanted to hear from both candidates. So Dr. Hodge first and then JD.
Sure. So one of the problems that we have with regards to costing and developing a housing stock is really the how do you approach housing? We know that there has been a lot of, should I say, wastage, a lot of leaking of the resources of the housing corporation. But I really think this is 2022, and again I go back to COP26, where when we're looking at housing for the future, there's no reason at this point in time we should be developing houses that are going to be reliant on fossil fuel energy. We really have to start taking advantage of some of the funding opportunities that are out there to build climate resilient communities and develop houses that at the end of the day your electricity bill is not going to be more than your mortgage, and develop programs in such a way that you can pay based on your salary. The way that it is right now appears to be, this is what the house will cost, and you must find a way to pay for it. If not, you find yourself, having to move out, etc. So again, when you look at, as JD mentioned earlier, when your decisions are made in the best interest of people, you will want to ensure that you're providing the best quality, best type of homes that you have, and as well look at what the technology is at this point in time to reduce the cost of building of the house. I know that right now there is an alternative investment opportunity under the CBI program. It was revealed at the meeting in Dubai, and certainly these are options that we would be exploring as well for Nevis, because it's one country, it's one federation, and if you're speaking about one passport, then the benefits of the CBI program that are felt in St. Kitts ought to be and would be felt in Nevis as well.
JD, it can't be business as usual.
Yes, I mean, don't get me wrong. I am not going to say that the NRP has all of the answers and we are going to come in and everything is going to be perfect, because, I mean, the reality is we have our work cut out for us, because this government, this CCM-led Nevis Island administration would have turned Nevis completely upside down. And so we are almost starting from scratch, and I'm being generous when I say almost. But when it comes to housing, I think one of the problems that we are facing is that we have persons in positions who can't relate to what the ordinary man or woman experiences on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it's all well and good to say we are launching 3 and 4 and 5 housing developments simultaneously. But what good is having multiple housing developments if there aren't persons to go into these homes? And the reality is that right now we are building homes that do not match the pockets of our people. Their salaries can't compete. I mean, their salaries can't match what the mortgage requirement is. I mean, I work in the financial services sector, and let's be real, you can't have a person who's making $2,000 a month paying with a child or two, knowing how they eat, paying a mortgage that is $1,700 or $1,800. How? When you also have to pay your electricity bill, your water bill, you know, you have to have internet. No, there is no if, no buts, or maybe it's about it based on how, you know, school is going. And so that just isn't practical. And I submit that what we need to do is to start building houses that match people's pockets. There is no rule that says that all of the houses have to be the same design. There is no rule that says that the designs that were used at Cherry Garden have to be the designs that are used at Daniel's Lodge. I mean, it just doesn't happen, and I think it's because we are so out of touch with the people and their needs why we continue to repeat these mistakes. Again, some persons have homes and own lands, but the homes just need a little fixing up, sprucing up, as we say locally. We don't need to take them from their homes and put them into a housing development. Why not offer to these people, let us build on what you have. You know, let that be part of the housing program. And don't get me wrong, I can say that some of us, and I speak, you know, in terms of inclusion, some of us would have made it difficult for others in terms of how we would have handled the housing program before, that some of us would have not paid. We know we have mortgages and we've not paid, and so I submit that, you know, we share some of the blame, but the reality is we cannot continue like this. We cannot continue to just for the sake of giving out letters, give people letters of a mortgage of $280-something thousand. Where in that is affordable? That is not affordable, not on people's salaries, not when you have almost half of the island on PEP or STEP or whatever other app we want to call it soon. You know, it just isn't feasible. I believe we need to build homes that match people's pockets.
And you know, the startling revelation was made by one of the ministers during the groundbreaking, the housing project on the bypass road, either there or the one up at Hamilton, that a vast majority of the persons who are trying to get so-called affordable housing are women. So the burden again falls on our women folk. They're the ones who are keenly interested in home ownership. So we've got a real dilemma on our hands.
And Mr. Manners, if I can say one more thing to that too. One of the problems that we face in the island of Nevis, and probably the Caribbean to some extent, is that we have this thing where we keep a government changes and we decide we're going to change everything. I maintain that if a project is working, if a project makes sense, if an idea was on the table and it makes sense, move forward with the idea. So for example, the NRP would have time and time again suggested a rent-to-own program. Excellent. We laid out plans, because when we do anything in the NRP, we do it well. And so we would have laid out plans and said, you know, how it is going to work and how we feel that it can benefit. I mean, that is something that could have been adopted by this government, especially now, considering that we have the situation that we have, where so many of our people simply cannot afford the houses that are that form part of the affordable housing scheme.
Dr. Daniel Hodge, you spoke earlier about fiscal responsibility. Your colleague, Dr. Bartlett, raked the Minister of Finance over the coals last week. Whether it is 260 million or 371 million, people are meeting me and say the maths just not add up. Even though he has been scrambling to explain that away. I imagine you're thinking there has to be greater fiscal responsibility going forward. But before that, wouldn't it be a good idea to settle this one? Remember, the Premier famously said that is our money, and I agree. And he also infamously said we can squander it if we want, and I don't agree. Wouldn't it be a good exercise in democracy if your party is invited around the table with the Minister of Finance, the cameras over his shoulder, and he could outline items line by line Brown Hill Road cost X number of $1 million. Contract awarded to so and so. Wouldn't that be a great activity in democracy rather than scrambling on every radio program to explain how that money went poof?
It definitely would be a great exercise, but we are realistic, and we do not expect that such an exercise would come. Now, it's interesting that where we find ourselves today is having sent 3 representatives to St. Kitts to represent the affairs of Nevis and the needs of Nevis. We find that we are now being told to go and ask the Prime Minister how much he is getting. And, don't worry about what Nevis is getting and what Nevis did with its money. Go and ask the Prime Minister how much he got and what he's doing with his. Now, how does that make sense when we have 3 representatives sitting around the cabinet table to identify how these monies can be provided? Obviously, the Premier was not given an account, and I guess the Prime Minister saw it fit to say, well, you can't tell the people how much money you got. You don't know how much is a fair share. But I'm going to tell them how much you got, and then you work out what you did with it. That is where the struggle is. How can you start a building without any plans, without knowing what the inside is going to look like? And you start off, for example, with the Newcastle police station. You started without a plan and without any money, and then you got a plan but no money, and then you got some money. Where have you seen development occur like that? Where have you seen a tender process where you're building a hospital and you do not know what the inside is going to look like? As far as I know, even if you're building a house, you know you're going to have some pipes running through the concrete for your electrical outlets and all these sort of things. So it will be very I can see how every project has a cost overrun because there's no planning. And this is something that we have been saying for a very long time. How do you start without knowing where you're going? And so I don't think that he would be able to explain where the monies have gone. I don't think that the people of Nevis feel satisfied that this money was provided and we do not have anything tangible in a sustainable way to move forward with. Because if you look at the roads, a lot of money has been gone into roads, as you know, has been stated before. But after 2, 3 years, 4 years, we know what's going to happen. The roads are going to fall in disrepair, and you're going to need maintenance.
Not so long.
Well, maybe. But Mr. Manners, here is something that I want to look at, because we're hearing that a lot of this money has gone into roads, as you like to say, smooth as a baby bottom, right?
Not me. I didn't say that. I was repeating something.
You like to repeat. As you like to repeat, right? But here is it, that the same Premier is saying that we have to spend about 7 million for the wage bill, salaries, etc. Now, you have 7 million because Public Works is the one building the road, right? Maybe a few private contractors. So you're going to count the 7 million that you pay Public Works with now, and then you're still going to count it when you give an account for the road. This is not where you have a
new match.
We have a contractor coming in, and so you have, because sometimes we say, yes, we all understand that if we can do something ourselves, we do it ourselves. But there must be the accountability.
Yes.
There must be the accountability. So you cannot have Public Works, crew working, building these roads. You're saying, well, $7 million went to them, and then come back and say, well, we had to build the road and it cost $20 million, but we'll take out the 7 million. Well, not the 7 because not all of it is public, but break it down. And so you're counting the money twice.
Yeah.
You're trying to count the money twice, and this, it's not going to add up. It's not going to add up because we know of the discrepancies and the shortcomings, and we know where you find blocks and steel end up in somebody's backyard that should not be there, and these kind of situations. So it's just, without the standardized processes that you would need to guide development, and without having any clear path to the type of development that you would want, you would always end up in this type of a situation, because you go down the road, you say, oh, I feel like I want this, oh, I feel like I want that, and you're not setting out and saying, as I said earlier, we want to move forward with renewable energy, allow our education to be focused in that area, allow the scholarships to be focused in that area, because we know this is a path that we want to go. And you identify your very path, and you have your budget allocations. This is what we're going to spend on sports, this is what we're going to spend on heritage tourism, this is what we're going to spend on education, and you work within those parameters. But there's really, the only thing happening in Nevis right now is construction. And so whether you take from construction from the road or construction from the hospital,
And that's mostly men. There are not too many women folk there.
Well, yes.
The women folk are scrambling for jobs because hotels are closed and that all that sort of thing. Now, we've only got another 10 minutes. You mentioned how there's a constant call to look and see what St. Kitts getting, not what we getting. We need more. Do you get a sense that it's part of the saber rattling, the old CCM playbook whenever an election is coming nigh? Blame St. Kitts for all our shortcomings.
Well, I think I'm not sure you're going to see too much of that now, because when they try to blame St. Kitts is pushing back. You can't say you're not getting your fair share. Well, I'm going to say how much you're getting.
Oh, you think that's part of the pushback?
Well, and so now, he's left to try to explain where all of this is happening. And so the more he tries to blame somebody else, he's going to find out that what JD likes to say, right? The buck stops at the top. You must have that accountability of what is happening. And so I was surprised to hear the length of discussion about former NRP candidates. This is 2022. The election is going to be 2022, as we think. But to see how much time is spent talking about candidates, prior NRP candidates, it makes me wonder, don't you have anything to talk about with regards to your plans? Don't you have anything to talk about with regards to the current slate of candidates? And it's good for you to go back and speak about some of the issues. You speak about Honorable Patrice Nisbet. You did not speak about the laptop program and what you did with it. You pick and choose what you want to speak about. So, you're all running on your old history. You're all talking about 4 seasons. You're all talking about this. But at the same time, you want to go back and speak about events of the past.
Oh, they say that
let us go forward.
People don't throw stones in an empty mango tree. The mango trees are looking ripe and gooey, and so the only answer to that is go back into the past. But the people of Nevis are looking for a path forward for the rest of 2021 and going into 2022. They've got important decisions to make. We've just got a few minutes. JD, what are your hopes and aspirations for the rest of the year and for 2022?
If you thought that I came out with a bang in April of 2021, you haven't seen anything yet. St. Paul's, I believe that this is our time. I believe that there is so much more that we can gain. I believe that there is so much more that our people can gain. There's so much more that we could be doing if we put the right person to direct our affairs. And I am confident that under the leadership of Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, this Nevis Reformation Party has the right team to move Nevis forward. And when I talk about Nevis, I maintain that we have to be number one in constituency number one. What I want is for our people to just put everybody on the same level, put us all at zero and start marking coming upwards. Do not come into it thinking I've always been a CCM supporter and so I am going to always be a CCM supporter. You don't have to come into it thinking that I've always been an NRP supporter and so I will always be an NRP supporter either. I want you to put us all at zero because I am that confident in this team. Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Mr. Rohan Isles, and myself, that we will emerge victorious. If you were to be honest with yourselves, if you were to listen to our plans and programs, you would maintain that we are far above those on the current government side. So, as we close out 2021, you can expect to see me even more in the community. Now, this is nothing new. There are some persons when they begin to run for, or when they've signaled that they want to run for elective politics, you start to see them. That's nothing new for me. I've always been involved in the community, and so I am just continuing that work. I am ensuring that the people around me are equally involved in the community and continuing that work. My daughter is only 8, but she has to be part of this journey because she has to understand that nothing is going to be handed to her. And so if I have to clean up an area, she has to clean it up too because she's going to benefit equally. I want the people of St. Paul's to understand that in me, you're going to find someone who really has your interest at heart, your best interest at heart. I have been where you are. I am where you are. I sit across from the table, not on top looking down. And so I understand your needs. Sometimes when you don't have money to pay your bills, trust me, it's the same thing as me. I have to choose sometimes between buying food and paying a bill. I maintain that if you were to give this NRP a chance, we will have better opportunities for you, your children, and your children's children. Give NRP a chance. And as I started, so I will end. It's time to say goodbye to your pains and experience gains with gains.
I can see a slogan coming. Dr. Daniel, I get a very strong sense that history is about to repeat itself in 2021. In another era, in another dispensation, there came a Daniel. Another Daniel has come again with your father's blood coursing through your veins. 2022 should be a year of revitalization, should be a new beginning for the island of Nevis. What say you?
In 1970, when NRP was founded, out of the struggles of the people of Nevis, I think that we are at a similar point right now. Whether it's the COVID-19 that really magnified a lot of the struggles, we know for sure that the people of Nevis have not been put at the center and decisions have not been made for the benefit of the people of Nevis. What we are looking at is a new era where inclusivity is key. You would see that from the onset of my leadership in the party with regards to how we would want to move forward, not as NRP for NRP, but as a NRP government for the best interests of the people of Nevis. I must say that it is interesting when I hear my colleague J.D. Keynes, number one for number one, and I think we're all very passionate about our constituencies. We have a very keen sense of wanting to see better, and it is interesting that we have experiences that put us right at the heart of the challenges, and we can relate to those challenges and know that better can be done if the best interest of Nevis is put at the fore and not self-interest. And so I am just as confident as JD and the other candidates that understanding this is a time where we're looking to the future, we have a clear vision of the path that we will want to take, and we are certain that once everybody recognizes that this is about us and not just a few, it's about all of the residents of Nevis and the citizens of Nevis, then we can work together to accomplish the prosperity that we want to see for Nevis in the years to come.
We've got 10 seconds. You definitely feel that change must come.
Change must come. Change must come because the economy cannot continue the way that it's going.
Yes.
Change must come because our healthcare system cannot be the way that it is.
Yes.
Change must come because our non-established workers must be recognized.
Yes.
Change must come because our teachers and our students must not be left behind as far as education development
Yes.
is concerned. Change must come because there's so much that we can do with our natural resources.
Yes.
Change must come because Nevisians and the residents of Nevis deserve better, and we will deliver much better for them.
Well,
Yes.
thank you on that note with some yes coming from your colleague here. We're out of time. It's been our third edition of Your Voice with the NRP. We're here every Monday. Next time we come here, it will be the month of December. And then we'll be looking squarely at 2022, the year in which change must come. Good night, and join us next week.
Your voice, your voice, your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its